Hey, what is up, mortals? It is zor-el here, and before we get into today's video, there is something I'd like to say. On behalf of we the Celestials and the writer, we would like to apologize for part 0. Honestly, we screwed up. We done goofed, and we're working hard to fix it. We love making these videos for your entertainment, and we're sorry that the first video didn't meet our team standards or your standards. After Deku, Ida, Kirishima, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu rescued Bakugo from the League of Villains, they fled from the battlefield, where All Might is currently fighting All for One. The group of young heroes rendezvous into the city. They found themselves within a crowd as they all watched All Might and All for One's rematch. As people around the world watched, there was a sudden shift in motion. People were dumbfounded as they noticed All Might in his weak form. The previous attack from All for One was very powerful. It took All Might to use the remaining strength he had to defend it. All Might's secret was exposed for the whole world to see. It left many people to question many things, like, will All Might win? Why aren't there any heroes helping him? I'm asking myself the same question. People started to lose their trust in the hero society as All Might's image as the symbol of peace slowly withered away.
What happened to that smile of yours, All Might?
All for One laughed and continued to torture All Might with his taunts. All Might was no longer smiling. A piece of All Might was ripped right off of him. The civilian underneath the rubble was saved from All Might. She pleaded from afar to not give up. We need you! Everyone watching knew that this was bad. All Might hadn't moved an inch, and they knew something was wrong. This caused Deku to panic and act irrational. He couldn't just stay there and watch All Might die. Everyone around him thought to themselves, what could happen next? Deku couldn't let this happen. Despite the heroes, the police, UA teachers, the doctor, and his classmates' warnings, Deku decided to go back and fight All for One himself. Deku forced himself to go 6% of full cowling because he had to get there fast. He ignored the doctor's warning about breaking his arms again. He would have to push himself to go beyond 100% to face All for One, although he might disable his arms permanently. Deku didn't care and needed to push himself to save All Might. Deku was frustrated that he wasn't strong enough to help him, so he decided that this was his chance to show All Might what he could do. Midoriya, where are you going? You fool! Don't go! Ida was astonished with Deku's irrational behavior. He couldn't understand why Deku would disobey everyone's orders when he convinced him to save Bakugo without having to fight the villains. Ida tried to go after Deku, but was stopped by Kirishima and the others so they could avoid further trouble. What's that idiot doing? Damn Deku, where are you going? Bakugo was stuck and confused. He thought to himself why Deku would leave the group. Bakugo thought back to when Deku was about to reveal his secret about One for All to him. Could it be that All Might gave Deku his work? Bakugo, unusually quiet, just stood there and continued to watch the broadcast. Deku dashed through the streets using full cowling, close to 7%, pushing himself to pass his limits. He needed to push himself so he could be strong enough for the fight. Deku avoided police officers evacuating the city, went by crowds running from the battle, and climbed buildings to get a better vantage point. The atmosphere darkened as All Might was on the road to death alongside the hero community. People panicked, but they also cheered for All Might. Beat him! Come on, All Might! Bakugo and other people around him started to shout and root for All Might. Fear not, miss, I'm not done yet! All Might clenched his fist and half of his arm buffed up. It was the remaining cinders of One for All. All Might was pushing himself and had no choice but to use all that was left of One for All. A hero has so much to protect in this world, which is why I will defeat you! All Might hasn't given up just yet. Hearing the voice of the civilian inspired him to surpass his limits. This was his last duty as a hero, which was to end All for One, once and for all. Gran Torino spectated them from a safe distance. The distorted form of All Might wasn't good. All for One slowly rose from the ground and assembled a combination of quirks to launch a defensive attack to kill All Might. All for One was done playing games with him. Before All for One could even start, he was caught off guard and was kicked in the face by a massive force. Smash! It was Deku, who arrived in the nick of time. Instead of 5%, he used around 8 in order to deal some sort of damage to him.
What are you doing here, kid? You're gonna get yourself killed!
All Might was outraged that Deku disobeyed him and many others. He had mixed feelings about his arrival. Even though Deku was stubborn enough to face All for One, he gave All Might some time to recuperate.
What is that moron doing? He's like Toshinori.
Gran Torino was bewildered and infuriated with Deku, but he couldn't expose his position. He didn't want to risk himself getting caught and to burden All Might even further now that he's got to worry about Deku.
I'm sorry, All Might, but I can't just sit here and watch you die!
Deku stared at All for One. This was the first time they were acquainted. He had the courage to face him earlier, but now an overwhelming amount of fear was filled in him. He couldn't believe that he was going through all of this. Deku can't turn back now, and if he were to slip up, then he would be killed in this fight.
Ah, you must be All Might's successor. Izuku Midoriya, was it? I heard a lot about you. Tomura has said many things about how you foiled his plans.
All for One properly introduced himself to Deku.
I would like to thank you for motivating Tomura. You see, he's going to be my successor one day, and there will be a day where you and Tomura will battle one another just like me and All Might.
All for One sounded friendly, but shouldn't be trusted. It was obvious that he tried to deceive Deku.
Young Midoriya, it's best that you should leave.
All Might grinned at Deku, so he convinced him to flee. All Might was willing to die for Deku and the world.
I can't leave your side, All Might! Whether you like it or not! I'm staying here!
Deku couldn't be convinced. He would have to be forced, but there's no way that was going to happen. All for One gave a chance for Deku to run. His impatience grew as he attacked Deku. All for One used his spring-like limbs and enhanced the force of the power to shoot medium-sized shockwaves of air. All for One wanted to test Deku, so his attacks were fairly weak. Deku dodged out of the way with ease. His body felt off because it's the first time he's going over 5%. Deku was about 7% using full cowling. However, he was a little discouraged by All for One's power because those bullets of air could have badly harmed him if he was any slower. All for One continued to send a barrage of the same attack at Deku. Deku dodged them using acrobatic moves he learned from Bakugo.
Not bad, but you have to do better than that to beat me. How could you call yourself his successor? You're too weak. How about you join me? I can help you master your powers by training with me.
All for One thought he could get Deku to change sides as he used a quirk to look into Deku's past. Deku wouldn't be fooled by this and declined the offer. All for One proceeded to combine multiple quirks and integrated it into his arm. His arm looked disfigured as it had spikes poking out of it. He decided to kill Deku and leave All Might alive, filled with shame and disgrace. Deku felt a huge weight on his chest. He had no choice but to sacrifice his arms if he wanted to survive. Deku went full cowling at 5%. As All for One approached him, he used 100% in his arm to throw a smash back at him. Deku clashed with All for One, creating powerful winds, blowing everyone away. All Might held on along with Gran Torino. They were both flailing in the air like flags on a pole. Deku couldn't handle All for One's power. It was overpowering him, and Deku's right arm shattered. Deku held on and kept pushing himself. The pain was excruciating, but he knew that this wasn't over yet.
I refuse to lose here!
Deku wanted to be alongside All Might. He didn't want All Might to die. Deku locked in against All for One with a power struggle. Deku was on the verge of death as the pain made Deku lose consciousness. Then, all of a sudden, Deku found himself trapped in a dark space. All for One wasn't in sight, and Deku was no longer at the destroyed city. This felt familiar. It was an empty void, and Deku spotted 8 other people. One of the people included All Might, in his prime, but the others he didn't recognize. It must be the previous users of One for All. It's the same vision he had before going into the sports festival. However, instead of glowing eyes, Deku could really see the past users. He didn't recognize any of them, but he was able to see them. All of a sudden, a surge of power came from Deku's broken arm. Deku felt his power rise exponentially. He was able to push back All for One's attack.
Wow, I'm really impressed. You were able to handle my attack. But it seems your arms are broken.
All for One toyed with Deku, trying to get into his head. It didn't work, because Deku was fixed on the strain in his arm. Deku bit his tongue to stop himself from passing out. He tasted his blood and smiled. All Might was flabbergasted to see Deku push himself this far. Yagidoria, are you still able to fight? All Might wanted Deku to be at ease. He decided to fight along with Deku using the last of One for All. Deku nodded and turned to see All Might walking to him. All Might walked to his side and rested his hand on his shoulder. Let's end this, kid. Once and for all. Right! Deku went full cowling, using 100%. The previous users of One for All allowed Deku to go this far. Just this once. His body felt like it was tearing him apart, but he was somehow okay. Deku's right arm was broken, but he had other limbs. All Might's right arm buffed up once again and was ready to use one last smash. Deku had to end this quickly before he passed out. Using 100% made him feel fatigued. All for One thrusted himself towards Deku. He collided into the ground and destroyed what was below him. Deku swiftly dodged it, but was very high in the air. The power of 100% was insane. It caught him off guard, but Deku came back down in an instant and pummeled All for One with the Manchester Smash. All for One redirected it using shock inversion. The shockwaves from Deku's attack cast him into a building. All for One attempted to attack All Might. All for One summoned his red tentacles and sharpened them. They became large needles, which flew straight to All Might. All Might managed to move out of the way. He jumped to return a smash into All for One. However, All Might was surrounded with massive boulders floating in the sky. The boulders closed in on All Might, but Deku instantly grabbed All Might's arm to maneuver him out of the way. He launched All Might as high as possible in the sky above All for One. Deku uppercutted All for One in the lower chin to fling him high in the air for All Might to do the final blow. All Might smashed All for One's face in. As the villain rocketed down from the impact of the punch, Deku and All Might formed together to use one mighty blow. Deku was tired and went out of full cowling. The fatigue got to him, but he was able to use 100% in his left arm. All Might used the remaining supply of One for All to strike one last smash along with Deku.
United States of
Smash! It was a double United States of Smash, and they crushed All for One into the ground, which created a massive crater. The earth shook, forming a large earthquake. Winds were blowing at high speed. The broadcast came to an end, and people who were watching cheered. The impact forced news reporters to fly away in their helicopters. Gran Torino evacuated with other heroes as they rescued nearby citizens. Deku and All Might were in the middle of the crater laying down. All for One was there as well, but the smash crippled him. It was a grotesque image, as All for One seemed to have 2 spots pushed into him. His skull was smashed in, and the man appeared to be dead. Gran Torino joined the 2 heroes. He scolded Deku for being a fool to disobey him. The 2 heard All Might coughing and wheezing. It sounded like he was choking and having a hard time breathing. Deku and Gran Torino were appalled to see All Might as they turned to look at him. There was a large object impaled in All Might's stomach. Deku didn't notice this before. How could this happen? Deku thought to himself. Toshinori, we need to... Gran Torino was heartbroken. He couldn't believe what he just witnessed. All Might, no! Deku felt despair and grief. All Might struggled to breathe as he spoke his last words.
Young Midoriya, listen to me. I'm sorry for leaving like this, but you'll take my place as the next symbol of peace. I apologize for putting this weight on your shoulders.
All Might smiled and chuckled as he slowly stopped breathing. All Might closed his eyes and lay there quietly. The hero died with a smile on his face, just how it should be. Deku began to sob and feel great amounts of misery. Gran Torino frowned, but had to take responsibility. He called an ambulance for them to arrive. Deku was in pain, both physically and mentally. Gran Torino was surprised that Deku was still able to sit up and hold All Might in his arms. He was crying his heart out as heroes near the area arrived. They were shocked to see All Might peacefully laying there. They knew what had happened and took action immediately. Many cops, firefighters, and paramedics arrived on the scene as well. Deku finally passed out due to his fatigue, and the paramedics took him to a nearby hospital. The people there didn't know what to do and felt troubled. They feared to announce the death of All Might, as it would give rise to the villains and cause panic in society.
What would be the right move?
Gran Torino asked himself as he sat there, concerned on what to do next. The news reporters arrived, only to discover horrific news. They interviewed the heroes on the scene. While police officers covered All for One's corpse, as they can't put him in custody, paramedics were busy as they checked everyone's physical condition to see if they were hurt or not. The reporters learned that All Might and the villain were killed at the end of the fight. They decided to go live and share this critical information that would affect the entire world. The headlines on the news everywhere announced, All Might, #1 hero's honorable death. The end of the symbol of peace. Rise to the villains. The world will forever change, and only time will tell what will happen next. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video, as well as the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description below. If you're a voice actor, editor, writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that is in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of these areas. We're always looking for new members to join us. That's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and if you're interested, and hit the like button if you like the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have an amazing day.